government, and so I had a role of leading research projects in different parts of the state, and very quickly there became this issue of rising groundwater salinity beneath the Padthaway flats. There were obviously a lot of concerns amongst the wine industry, not only in Padthaway but more regionally and nationally, and so that really sparked the new investigations into what was causing the salt.
It was getting, for us, concerning in our northern areas when bores were rising towards the 1,000 parts per million mark. But we did know there were bores in the valley here around Padthaway that were up to 1,500 parts. Well, most of ours were around that 500 or 600 at that stage.
A lot of the blame, if you like, of the salinity increase has been linked to flood irrigation in particular, or other different irrigation types. The
flood irrigation wasn't done away with for many years. We did get to manage it much better instead of just putting too much water down. It was the flood irrigation areas that if we ever had wet harvest periods, we could have problems getting machines and tractors through.
You couldn't then actually drive a tractor on your vineyard after it was flood irrigated. And the conversion from flood and travelling irrigators to drip has seen the amount of water used in vineyards reduce from 5 to even 8 megalitres a hectare down to 1 to 2 megalitres a hectare. So that's been a big difference to make water sustainable in the region as well. There
was a very considerable body of research for about 5 or 6 years, funded by the South Australian Government, the Commonwealth Government and also the local industry, primarily the Padthaway Grape Growers Association. Now what the science has shown is that obviously there's a huge range of impacts under different system types, but we are more interested in the actual hydrogeological processes and how they control the salinity than pointing the finger at one different irrigation system type.
There's a large aquifer just under the ground, probably at 5 to 8 metres most of the time, in the summertime at least. With the clearing of the range many years ago, we did see a little bit of salinity come from those cleared sands on the range.
And that then flows onto the flats that creates some local apparent salinity problem beneath the flats. And then by the time you get to the northern end of the valley and you talk about Grub Road, you're essentially at the end of that local flow system. It's akin to the River Murray or any other system where we look at changes from the top of a catchment to the bottom. But the hope was that through the change management of the valley or the prescribed wells area, that would start to mitigate some of the salinity trends that we saw right throughout the valley. There was volumetric conversion also happening at the same time. There was some uncertainty about how numbers were being derived, about transferring from area-based allocations to volumetric allocations. And so there was this almost war going on between irrigators that literally live next to each other about how much water they were going to get. If they had to take a cut to fit within sustainable limits, how much would they bear, how much would the people next door bear? So I was involved at that stage, and it was certainly quite an ugly period for a while. And eventually we went through the scientific arguments and ended up sitting down with both groups separately and coming up with a model for not only setting an extraction limit but working out how individual licensees could be reduced back to a sustainable limit. Ironically, the final limit that we derived was very, very similar to the one that the government process had also proposed. But the whole process of engaging groups and properly working through the issues was instrumental in making people actually come along and understand the process. The lesson for me was that disparate sections of the community that all actually want the same goal can resolve these things.
We're actually seeing much fresher water come out of there, and all the bores at the bottom of the range are very fresh, almost taste like rainwater. Of course, in the 40 years or so since Padthaway started, we have seen salinities rise, and in some cases we've seen them fall again with the aquifer cleaning up from the range and starting to run fresher water down into the valley.
It will continue to change for tens of years I can't put an absolute value on it, but it is, because groundwater moves so slowly through the system and there's such a large quantity of it, these changes, take decades. In the same way that it took decades to realise the salinity problems, it's going to take decades, if not hundreds of years, to fully see a new equilibrium. And again, the impacts of climate change could override all of that.